Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Kristi Noem puts Senator Van Hollen in his place when he completely gets everything wrong about Abrego Garcia again, and then Senator Kennedy comes in at the end to really bring the hammer down. Let's dive in.
I just asked you, Madam Secretary, whether or not you or the Department of Homeland Security are taking any action to facilitate the 9-0 Supreme Court decision to facilitate his return. This is a very simple question. Are you taking any action to facilitate his return, or are you not?
This administration is following and complying with all federal court orders to make sure that we.
So you are because the court ordered that you facilitate his return. So you are facilitating his return.
Sir, Senator, thank you for the question. But what I would tell you is that we are following court orders, and that your advocacy for a known terrorist is alarming to me.
Madam Secretary,
it's alarming to me because he's a human smuggler.
Madam Secretary, I'm going to have to reclaim
and a terrorist, and he's not a U.S. citizen. He's a citizen of El Salvador, and he's home. If he were to come back
Madam
here,
Secretary,
we would take him immediately.
All right, I'm going to have to, Madam Secretary, you should know a couple facts then, which is, number one, in 2019, the immigration court said that he should not be returned to El Salvador because it would put his life in danger. The Trump administration at the time did not appeal that decision. After that, he got a work permit and was working legally in the United States of America. This is also why the district court and the appellate court and the Supreme Court have ruled as they have. I suggest that rather than make these statements here, that you and the Trump administration make them in court under oath, because despite what you just said, the federal district court whose judge is hearing this case right now said, and I'm quoting, that the administration has provided no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or any other terrorist activity. I'm not vouching for the man. I'm vouching for his due process rights.
Yes, you are, sir. You've
no,
been vouching for
Madam
him.
Secretary, with
respect.
respect.
I would suggest that you defend and stand alongside the victims of illegal crime.
This is political rhetoric.
The citizens who live here and are United States Americans. I would suggest you advocate for them as hard as you do those foreign terrorists.
I know you're doing a political speech here.
I'm
I
not,
get it.
sir.
I'm asking questions of law. No, you're just spewing rhetoric.
I truly believe this.
You're spewing rhetoric. Let me ask you this: Do you agree with Justice Scalia in the Supreme Court opinion in Reno v. Flores that, I'm quoting, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in deportation proceedings." End of quote.
Sir, we are utilizing every due process tool that this Congress has afforded us. The Congress decides what due process is appropriate for every situation. Expedited removal is a due process that you have afforded us that we are utilizing. The Alien Enemies Act.
I'm going to reclaim my time, Madam Secretary.
So we are giving due process and using the tools that this Congress has given us.
This is really, I'm asking sort of simple questions of law, and simple questions like, are you complying with the 9-0 Supreme Court decision? And you seem to think that's some kind of trick question. Let me ask you this. You were down at CCOT in El Salvador, and you said, and that, I'm quoting, "It is one of the tools in the toolkit that we will use." And it's well known that the Trump administration is paying the government of El Salvador to keep these individuals, including those who the U.S. courts have determined were illegally taken out of the country in violation of their due process rights. Have you seen the grant document between the United States and the government of El Salvador with respect to the CCOT?
It's important that everybody knows the consequences of what happens for their actions in this country. When you break the law and you're a member of a foreign terrorist organization,
I asked you a question. Have you seen the document? This is not hard.
Yes, I have.
Okay. And what are the provisions of the document? So do you know what entities in El Salvador are receiving the funds?
I'm sure you can see this document as well and have looked at it for evaluation.
I'm glad you raised that, Madam Secretary, because I sent you a letter along with many of my colleagues here on April 8th asking for, among other things, that document. Will you respond to the letter that we sent?
I will respond to your letter.
Thank you. Can I get some sense of when?
We will take a look at it. I don't remember seeing your letter yet, but I will certainly take a look at it.
Well, it's been there over a month.
The senator's time has expired.
No, Madam Chair.
Senator Kennedy?
Madam Chair.
Madam Secretary.
The Secretary. I have some additional questions.
No, sir, that's up to you to manage that time. Senator Kennedy.
Madam Secretary.
I need a little help from a chair that respects the members of the committee. I'm sorry, Chair. This is...
You pretty much secured the southern border, haven't you?
Yes, sir. The CBP,
and
that
upsets some of my colleagues, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. They say you've done it the wrong way, haven't they? Mm-hmm. Could you answer that?
Yes, sir. They do say that.
This is a sitting senator. This dude knows better. He knows that Abrego Garcia is an alleged MS-13 member. He knows that Abrego Garcia was indeed an illegal immigrant and came here to this country in 2011. He knows that this dude lived in Maryland. He knows that there is a human trafficking allegation against him. Back when Abrego Garcia was apparently in Tennessee, got pulled over by a traffic cop, and basically when all the members in his truck, which was filled to the brim, I think there were 8 people inside that truck, they all gave the exact same story. Yeah, that sounded a little bit fishy, but they couldn't make anything stick at the time. So yeah, Abrego Garcia got deported to El Salvador, his nation of origin, and he had enough points against him that basically that the U.S. Supreme Court even said, yes, this man should have been deported. Van Hollen knows the reality of this court decision, which was 9-0, by the way. He loves bringing that up, and if you actually read the briefing, which I just so happened to read right before this video, amazing how things work out together. But the Supreme Court ruled that lower district courts cannot dictate what a president can or can't do. That is not in their purview. And at the end of the decision, the Supreme Court then said the president should facilitate Abrego Garcia's return to the United States. And do you know what happened? Donald Trump asks President Bukele in the White House, in the Oval Office, and he just asked the dude, will you return him to the United States? And Bukele just turned and laughed. He laughed because he knows that Abrego Garcia has enough points against him, he has enough ties to MS-13 to keep him in that prison in El Salvador for a good long while. Abrego Garcia is not coming home to America. He has been returned home to El Salvador. So yeah, basically the Trump administration was given carte blanche ability to deport this dude, and the only reason that there was any lawsuit brought up to begin with is because the Trump administration moved a little too quickly and basically jumped the gun. Well, if due process continues its course, well, congratulations, he'd be back in El Salvador. Good grief. The amount of mental gymnastics here. And remember, Chris Van Hollen knows better. He knows. He knows exactly what he's doing. This is political theater. Again, this is what happens when a conservative kid goes through theater camp. He ends up understanding what's going on here. All right? That's my origin. That's where I come from. I come from a long line not a long line, but I do come from a family with a little bit of acting chops. And the reality is, we know what's fake and we know what's real because we know how actors will do. They'll put on a different face, they'll put on a different facade, and again, politicians do the exact same thing. Ever since they put cameras in the Senate building and in the committee buildings, no longer is it about actually hashing out details, it is now political theater. That's what this is. Chris Van Hollen knows what he's doing. And he doesn't care what he's doing. Or rather, he does care, but he doesn't really care about his own constituents. He cares about getting reelected. He cares about sending out that email blast with him standing up to Kristi Noem and reminding her that the Supreme Court agreed 9-0 without, actually reading the brief or translating the brief or even admitting that the 9-0 decision was in favor of the Trump administration. All right, that's the simple truth of the matter. This is political theater. And at a certain point, we got to ask ourselves, do we want actors or do we want politicians? Do we want Atticus Finch or do we want Brad Pitt? Okay? Do you want these Hollywood actors that don't really know anything other than their characters? Or do we want people who actually have some integrity here? Because Chris Van Hollen is not showing integrity. He is merely showing that he is good at putting on a different face and going in front of the stage and acting as if he cares. Acting as if he has the American people's interests at heart. Really, if you want to know what this guy really thinks, ask him who Rachel Morin was and what does she mean to him. Spoiler alert, that was a woman slain by an illegal migrant, all because under the Biden administration, there was an open door policy at our southern border. That's not acting, by the way, that's reality. And that reality has harmed and even ended the lives of average, everyday Americans. This is not fair to them. This is not fair to the people who are fleeing violence. No, they're not. Not people like Abrego Garcia. He was basically fleeing the fact that El Salvador was changing and he was running away before things got really bad for him. Well, he's made his bed. Now it's time for him to lie in it. And I guess it's the same for Chris Van Hollen as well. Maybe the good people of Maryland should look inwards and realize, maybe Donald Trump is doing the right thing. Maybe Kristi Noem is doing the right thing. And it's Chris Van Hollen who is acting like a buffoon in front of Congress. And then Senator John Kennedy right there at the end calls him out and reminds him that the border is more secure under the Trump administration than it ever was under Biden. Chris Van Hollen cannot act his way around that. Ask him if he can recite to be or not to be. And the answer is no, but he does know how to put on just enough of an acting front to convince moronic Democrat voters who will believe him at face value because he's really sticking it to the Trump administration. Good grief. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.